after we created a brand new project, first we delete the unnecessary things like logo and the code. So we do not need this. Instead, we are going to create a simple list of names. And then we use npm start and see the result is like this. Although when you look at this, it's just like HTML, but actually this is not HTML, this is JSX. But what is JSX? JSX allows us to write HTML elements in JavaScript and paste them in the DOM without any create element or append child method. Or let's go to Babel. First we have to copy the code from the React. And then we go to try it out and paste it on the left hand side. And as you can see, this is the generated JavaScript. What it means is, if we do not use JSX, we have to write this kind of code in order to do the same things. So let's copy this code and paste it in our project. And as you can see, we can get the same result. However, no one wants to use this difficult way to do the same thing. And this is why we need the JSX. In this part, we are going to learn how to apply the custom CSS to our project. The project is very simple. We just create a div center at another div. But first we have to delete the CSS. We also have to delete the CSS file. And also not necessary, so we have to delete. Now we just go to return a div inside a div. Now we go to create a custom CSS file. And since this is not a CSS course, so we just paste the CSS here. And then we go back to the app.js and import. Single dot and slash is the same folder, so we choose the custom.css. And here we just have two classes. One is inner div and the other is outer div. To apply the CSS, we have to use the class, but here we are not going to use the class. Instead, we are going to use the class name. Now, as you can see, the green box is at the center of the red div. The reason that we are not going to use the class but use the class name is because the class is the reserved word for the JavaScript. Besides importing the CSS, we can also write the inline CSS. For example, instead of using the outer div class, we can also change it to the inline style. So here we can change to style. And also remember, this is JSX, not CSS, so there are some rules that we have to remind. First, if the CSS have a dash in between, we have to change it to delete the dash and capitalize the next character. And also the value, we have to add a single quote because this is JSON objects. And also the semicolon will become a comma. So because we are going to use the JSON object, so we have to make the bracket here. And also we have to copy the CSS, and then we paste here. This value we have to add a single quote, and the semicolon will become comma. And we have to delete this one and change to capitalize, and the rect will become a string. Also, we have to delete the semicolon. Let's try to change the color to the blue. And as you can see, it also can change the CSS by using the inline style. Sometimes we may also want to put all the styles into one object. So we can now create an object called styles. And inside the styles, there are two properties. One is inner styles, inner div, and the other is outer div. First, we have to copy this one. We only copy content and paste it inside the inner style. And then we go to the custom.css, and we have also need to copy this and convert to the JSON. We can also copy it by ourselves, and the other way is to paste it into a website and convert it into a JSON object. We already pasted the CSS inside here, and then we can now just copy the styles it converted and back to the app.js, and then paste it inside the outer div. Now we have to change it to styles. This one also can be deleted. We can now just need to type styles.inner div, or should be outer div. And this one is inner div. We make a mistake here. This should be the outer div. And this should be the inner div. So when we take a look, this looks exactly the same. In React, we can store the JSX element to a variable and then use it in render method. For example, we can create a variable called SomeTest. And we store a string SomeTest. And then we also create another variable called SomeDiv, which we store the JSX element. And we make some style here in order to create a white background. If we replace this test to SomeTest, you can see that the test has been changed to SomeTest. And now let us try to change it to some div. Now you can see it already changed it to a white background div with the tag some div.